Iran, in the decades leading up to 1979, was a nation in flux. The Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, embarked on an ambitious modernization program seeking to propel Iran into the modern era. His vision, known as the White Revolution, aimed to transform Iran's economy, society, and place on the world stage. The Shah sought to emulate Western models of development, promoting industrialization, urbanization, and secular education. He invested heavily in infrastructure, education, and healthcare, leading to significant advancements in these areas. Women, in particular, experienced a dramatic expansion of their rights under the Shah's reforms, gaining access to education, employment, and political participation. However, the Shah's modernization drive was not without its critics. The rapid pace of change alienated many segments of Iranian society, particularly those with deep religious beliefs and those in rural areas who felt left behind by the Shah's focus on urban development. Traditionalists viewed the Shah's westernization efforts as a threat to Iranian culture and Islamic values. The Shah's authoritarian style of rule, characterized by the suppression of dissent and the use of a secret police force known as Savak, further fueled resentment among those who felt their voices were being silenced. The Shah's economic policies, while successful in stimulating growth, also contributed to growing inequality. The gap between the rich and the poor widened, creating a sense of injustice and resentment among those who felt excluded from the benefits of modernization. The Shah's close ties to the West, particularly the United States, were also a source of contention, with many Iranians viewing his regime as a puppet of foreign powers. These underlying tensions, simmering beneath the surface of Iran's apparent progress, would eventually erupt in revolution. Despite the Shah's efforts to modernize Iran, his regime was marked by significant economic and political inequalities. While the White Revolution did bring about improvements in literacy rates, healthcare access, and economic opportunities for some, it also exacerbated existing disparities. The Shah's policies favored Western-educated elites and large-scale industrial projects, often at the expense of traditional industries and rural communities. Land reform, intended to redistribute land to the peasantry, often resulted in increased landlessness and displacement, driving farmers into overcrowded cities seeking work. Politically, the Shah ruled with an iron fist. He tolerated no opposition and relied heavily on Savak to silence dissent. Freedom of speech was severely curtailed, and political parties and independent media were suppressed. Anyone suspected of opposing the Shah's regime, including students, intellectuals, religious figures, and even ordinary citizens, expressing dissatisfaction, risked imprisonment, torture, or disappearance. The Shah's authoritarianism created a climate of fear and stifled any meaningful political discourse, pushing opposition underground and creating fertile ground for radical ideologies to take root. This combination of economic disparity and political repression deeply alienated large segments of Iranian society. The very people the Shah aimed to uplift through modernization often found themselves marginalized and silenced. The gap between the Shah's rhetoric of progress and the reality experienced by many Iranians fueled a growing sense of resentment and discontent, setting the stage for a revolution that would topple his regime. Into this volatile mix stepped Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, a charismatic religious leader who had been exiled from Iran in 1964 for his outspoken criticism of the Shah's policies. From his exile in Iraq and later France, Khomeini became a powerful symbol of resistance, using cassette tapes and smuggled writings to denounce the Shah's regime and call for an Islamic revolution. Khomeini's message resonated with a wide range of Iranians, from devout Muslims who felt their faith was under attack to secular leftists who opposed the Shah's authoritarianism. Khomeini offered a compelling alternative to the Shah's vision of a westernized Iran. He called for a return to Islamic values and the establishment of an Islamic Republic, a system of governance based on Islamic law and principles. He skillfully tapped into the deep well of resentment over economic inequality, political repression, and cultural alienation, uniting disparate groups under the banner of Islam. As protests against the Shah's regime intensified in 1978, Khomeini's message gained even greater traction. The Shah's attempts to quell the unrest through a combination of concessions and brute force proved futile. The more he cracked down, the more the opposition grew. By the end of 1978, Iran was engulfed in a full-blown revolution. The Shah, facing overwhelming opposition and abandoned by his Western allies, fled the country in January 1979. Khomeini returned to Iran in triumph a month later, greeted by millions of jubilant supporters. The Islamic Revolution had triumphed, and Iran was on the cusp of a dramatic transformation. The overthrow of the Shah and the establishment of the Islamic Republic marked a watershed moment in Iranian history. The revolution had been fueled by a yearning for freedom, justice, and an end to oppression. Yet the new regime, despite its promises of a more equitable and just society, quickly proved to be just as authoritarian and oppressive as the one it replaced. While the Shah's regime had been characterized by secular repression, the Islamic Republic imposed its own brand of religious tyranny. One of the most immediate and visible changes was the imposition of strict Islamic law and social restrictions. Women, who had enjoyed significant freedoms under the Shah, were particularly targeted. They were forced to wear the hijab, their roles in society were severely curtailed, and many of the rights they had gained were stripped away. Religious minorities such as Baha'is and Christians faced increased persecution and discrimination. Political dissent was ruthlessly suppressed, often more brutally than under the Shah. The Islamic Republic proved to be a deeply paradoxical revolution, one that replaced one form of oppression with another. The legacy of the Iranian Revolution is a tapestry woven with threads of hope, despair, and resilience. While the revolution succeeded in toppling the Shah's regime, it also brought about profound changes that continue to shape Iran's socio-political landscape. The establishment of the Islamic Republic altered the nation's identity, embedding religious principles into governance and daily life. This shift has had far-reaching implications not only for Iran, but for the broader Middle East and the world. Economically, the revolution disrupted Iran's trajectory. The initial promise of wealth redistribution and social justice gave way to economic challenges, exacerbated by international sanctions and internal mismanagement. Yet, despite these hardships, the Iranian people have demonstrated remarkable resilience, finding ways to adapt and thrive. Culturally, the revolution sparked a renaissance of sorts as Iranians grappled with their past and present to forge a new identity. Understanding this history is crucial for comprehending Iran's current socio-political landscape. Thank you for watching. If you found this video informative, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more historical insights.